Hi, I was going to give you a quick overview of the proposed ED discharge workflow and just walk through it real quick. Within a given patient's chart, we use these statuses, patient statuses, to track where the patient is in the ED process. So let's say we have a patient who's in the middle of their ED workflow. They're triggered as this ugly brown as they're ready for reevaluation. If I enter in the patient's chart, let's say I'm midway through my evaluation, but I want to work on the patient's discharge process, I can go and use smart sets, which we're going to be building a lot more of. And let's say the patient is here for dental pain, so I can open up a smart set, and within the smart set are things like prescriptions, impressions, dispositions. I'm not going to go over smart sets now, but the point was that disposition is listed and defaulted as discharge for this particular smart set. This discharge flag right here, disposition setting, is identical to the disposition workflow in the navigator section right here. And if you click on either of these, it opens up a little dialog. And within the dialog, you can choose what the disposition is. The patient is going to be discharged, so I choose this right now. The point is that you can choose this prior to the patient being physically ready to leave the department, so while you're prepping the patient. And what this does is it creates a timestamp let me refresh this. Oops, I did it again. Yeah, I'm sorry, you have to sign. This has orders in it, so you actually have to sign the orders. And then it will save. Okay, so now if I go into this triggered event here, you're going to see that there are a couple additional ED events. Discharge orders placed, disposition is selected. So discharge disposition is selected right here. There is no actual discharge order. So then if I go back to my tracker board, you're going to see that it now changed color. And this particular color is associated with an ED status called discharge prep. And what this is supposed to do is indicate to the nurse that the patient is ready for them to start preparing for discharge, which means printing out the AVS summary and getting any to-go meds and whatever else needs to be done for the patient to be ready to go, but they are not physically ready to leave the department. There's an additional flag right here, which shows the disposition. That is that ED disposition that we chose. This is again to indicate to the nurse that the patient is ready to be prepped for discharge. And we are also going to be proposing adding an additional visual indicator here, a small little column with an icon that has a picture of a little house on it that says DC, and it'll have a little house that is there when the patient is ready to be discharged. Now, in order to avoid confusion and the patient's leaving prematurely, we're proposing that we use this methodology because it's fast and it's easy for the nurses to see, that the physician or provider would click on patient and go ready for transfer discharge. And what that will do is it will turn the patient green, and with the adage, green means go. So when the patient is green, there would likewise be a little icon in this column here, which would have a little house on it, which would be the indicator for the nurse that the patient is ready to go. And then the nurse would do the discharge. There's also an additional flag, an event, which will trigger a timestamp. So we will be able to trigger the time that the physician indicates the patient is ready to physically leave the department. And then the nurse will come back shortly thereafter and click on discharge, which will open up the actual ADT navigator. And this is where the nurse can enter the disposition. And when they click discharge, then the patient will physically be discharged from the system. So we will collect metrics or timestamps on the actual ADT discharge, on the time the physician right-clicks and chooses the patient is ready for discharge or transfer, as well as the time the disposition was set, which is going to be earlier in the course, which we could use to just track efficiency and productivity. All right, that's it.